He is a man who changed the way the world shops, how the internet breathes, and is now building the infrastructure for humanity to live among the stars with a net worth that has touched over $200 billion. His name is Jeff Bezos. Most people think the story of Jeff Bezos begins in a garage in Seattle. But to truly understand the man who would become the richest person on earth, we have to go back to 1964 to a teenage girl in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Jacqueline Gies was just 17 years old and still in high school when she became pregnant. This was a time when being a pregnant teen was a massive social scandal. Her father, a high-ranking government official, had to fight the school board just to let her finish her education. Jeff's biological father, Ted Jorgensen, was a circus performer, a unicyclist. The marriage lasted less than 2 years, and Ted disappeared from Jeff's life so completely that he didn't even know until the journalist published about him when Jeff was 4. His mother married Miguel Bezos, a Cuban immigrant who arrived in America alone at age 15 with nothing but a few hand-stitched shirts. This is where the Bezos name comes from. It wasn't a name of wealth, it was a name of struggle, survival, and the immigrant dream of building something from nothing. By the time Jeff was in Montessori school, his teachers noticed something strange. He would get so focused on a task that they would have to pick up his chair and move him to get him to stop. He had a tunnel vision focus that was almost superhuman. As he grew into his teens, his bedroom looked more like a NASA laboratory than a kid's room. He was obsessed with science fiction, especially Star Trek, and he spent every cent of his allowance on electronic components from Radio Shack. He famously grew tired of his younger siblings bursting into his room, so he engineered a complex ultrasonic alarm system. He didn't just buy an alarm, he studied the physics of sound waves, wired the sensors himself, and rigged it to a silent alarm. This was Jeff's first product, a solution to a problem that he built with his own hands. The most influential person in Jeff's life wasn't a billionaire, it was his grandfather who called pow pow every summer. From the age of 4 until he was 16. Jeff lived on a massive, isolated ranch in Cotulla, Texas. This wasn't a vacation. It was hard, grueling manual labor. On a ranch, if something breaks, you can't call an Uber or a repairman. You are hundreds of miles from help. Jeff and his grandfather spent their days casting great cattle, branding livestock, and fixing heavy machinery. Once, they needed to move a massive Caterpillar tractor engine, so they built their own crane from scrap metal. Bezos later said that his grandfather taught him that resourcefulness is a choice. If you are stuck, you don't complain, you invent a way out. This ranch mentality would eventually become the culture of Amazon, a company that prides itself on doing. There is a famous story from those Texas summers that Jeff tells at almost every commencement speech. He was a math prodigy, and he loved to calculate everything. He heard an anti-smoking ad that said every puff of a cigarette takes a few minutes off your life. So, while sitting in the car with his grandmother, who was a heavy smoker, he did the math in his head. He proudly announced, "Grandmother, at 2 minutes per puff, you've taken 9 years off your life." He expected her to be impressed by his brilliant math. Instead, she burst into tears. His grandfather pulled the car over, took Jeff outside, and said words that would change Jeff's life forever. "Jeff, one day you'll understand that it's harder to be kind than clever." This realization that intellect without empathy is useless is the reason Amazon is obsessed with the customer experience. Jeff realized that being smart isn't enough to change the world. You have to solve people's pain. After college, Jeff didn't head for a garage. He headed for the towers of New York City. He was a rising star in the world of high finance. By his late 20s, he had landed at D.E. Shaw & Amp Company, a specialized hedge fund that used complex mathematical models to trade stocks. Jeff was so good at his job that he became one of the youngest senior vice presidents in the firm's history. He was earning a massive salary, bonuses in the millions, and lived a life of total financial security. He had reached the top of the mountain. But in 1994, while researching new investment opportunities, he stumbled upon a statistic that would haunt him. The World Wide Web was growing at a rate of 2,300% per year. To Jeff's mathematical mind, that wasn't just a number, it was a signal that a tidal wave was coming. He knew that anything growing that fast would eventually change everything about how we live. Jeff went to his boss, David Shaw, and told him he wanted to start an online bookstore. His boss was a brilliant man and took Jeff for a 2-hour walk in Central Park. He told Jeff, "This sounds like a wonderful idea for someone who doesn't already have a great job." To make the decision, he invented a mental model he calls the regret minimization framework. He imagined himself at 80 years old, looking back on his life. He knew that at 80, he wouldn't care about missing his 1994 Wall Street bonus. But he knew that if he didn't join this thing called the internet, he would regret it every single day. With that clarity, he walked away from millions of dollars and a guaranteed career. He chose the path of most resistance because it was the only path that led to no regrets. In the summer of 1994, Jeff and his wife Mackenzie packed their lives into a Chevy Blazer. They drove from New York to Seattle. Because it was a tech hub with a large pool of talent and was close to one of the largest book warehouses in the country. While Mackenzie drove, Jeff sat in the passenger seat with a laptop, typing out the business plan and the financial world. He wanted the experience of buying a book to be like magic. But when he called his lawyer to set up the company, the lawyer misheard him and thought he said, "cadaver," which means dead body. Jeff realized immediately that his branding was a disaster. He began searching for a name that started with A, so it would show up first in search engines. He settled on Amazon, the largest river in the world. His goal wasn't just to be a bookstore, it was to be a river of commerce that touched every corner of the globe. When they arrived in Seattle, they rented a house with a garage. To save every penny, Jeff went to Home Depot. To save money, instead of buying office desk, he bought solid core wooden doors for $60 each. He nailed 4x4 pieces of wood to them for legs and created the famous door desks. They spent money on things that helped customers, not on fancy furniture for employees. The first few months were brutal. Jeff, Mackenzie, and their first employee, Shel Caffin, worked in a space so small they had to be careful not to trip over the computer cables. They were building a world-class empire in a room that smelled like gasoline and old cardboard. On July 16, 1995, Amazon.com officially opened its virtual doors to the public. Jeff and his tiny team had no idea if anyone would actually buy a book from a stranger on the internet. To keep spirits high, they rigged a bell in the office to ring every time a customer made a purchase. In the first few days, the bell rang occasionally, and the whole team would cheer. But within weeks, the bell was ringing so frequently that they had to disable it because it was driving them crazy. In just 30 days, Amazon had sold books to all 50 US states and 45 different countries. They were working 20-hour days. Jeff, the CEO of a multi-million-dollar idea, spent his nights on his hands and knees on a cold concrete garage floor, packing boxes. He famously told his employee, "We need to buy knee pads." In May 1997, only 2 years after launching, Amazon went public on the NASDAQ. The stock opened at $18 a share. Jeff Bezos was now a billionaire on paper, but he didn't change his lifestyle. He still drove his old 1987 Honda Accord. When a journalist asked him why a billionaire was driving an old car, Jeff simply smiled and said, "It's a perfectly good car." He told investors clearly, "It's all about the long term. We will make decisions based on customer leadership rather than short-term Wall Street gains." He warned them that he would be unprofitable for a long time because he was going to reinvest every penny into the future. It was a bold move that many Wall Street analysts hated, but it would eventually become his greatest edge. 10 came the year 2000. The stock market crashed, and hundreds of internet companies disappeared overnight. Amazon's stock price, which had soared to over $100, came crashing down to just $6. The media, which had once called Jeff a genius, now mocked him. Major newspapers ran headlines saying, "Amazon, toast." Investors were panicking, calling for Jeff to be fired. Most CEOs would have sold their shares and quit, but Jeff did something different. He took a yellow highlighter and went through his internal data. He realized that while the stock price was going down, every single customer metric, customer satisfaction, repeat purchases and shipping speed was going up. He told his employees, "Don't be distracted by the stock market. When the stock is up 30%, you aren't 30% smarter. When the stock is down 30%, you aren't 30% dumber. Just keep your head down and focus on the customer." In the middle of this financial crisis, Jeff made his most controversial decision yet: Amazon Prime. At the time, shipping was expensive and slow. Jeff wanted to offer free 2-day shipping for a flat yearly fee. His financial advisors told him he was insane. They showed him the math. If a customer ordered a heavy set of weights or a TV, Amazon would lose $20 or $30 on every single shipment. They predicted it would bankrupt the company in months. But Jeff understood human psychology. He knew that if he removed the friction of shipping costs, people would stop going to physical stores and start buying everything from toilet paper to electronics on Amazon. He was right. Prime became the moat that protected Amazon from every competitor. He turned a retail store into a utility that people couldn't live without. While everyone was focused on the boxes being shipped, Jeff was building something even bigger in the background. Amazon had become so good at managing its own servers and computer code that they realized they could sell taut infrastructure to other companies. This became AWS, or Amazon Web Services. At the time, it seemed like a side project. But Jeff saw it as the electricity of the internet. Today, AWS powers Netflix, NASA, the CIA, and millions of other businesses. It is the most profitable part of Bezos' entire empire. It proved that Jeff wasn't just a bookseller, he was an architect of the modern world. He had successfully transitioned from a man in a garage to a man who controlled the digital backbone of the planet. While Amazon was conquering the world of retail, Jeff Bezos was quietly spending his Wednesday afternoons working on something that most people didn't even know existed. In the year 2000, he founded Blue Origin. For years, it was a stealth company. He didn't want the publicity, he wanted the engineering. Bezos has often said that Amazon was his lottery winnings that allowed him to pursue his true childhood passion: space. He didn't just want to build a rocket company to compete with NASA. He wanted to build a road to space so that future generations could live and work among the stars. He began liquidating $1 billion of Amazon stock every single year to fund Blue Origin. While the world saw him as a CEO of a store, in his mind, he was an explorer trying to save the Earth by moving heavy industry into orbit. As Amazon grew, so did Jeff. If you look at photos of Jeff Bezos in 1994, he looks like a typical office worker, thin, balding, and wearing oversized sweaters. But as he turned 50, the world witnessed a shocking transformation. Jeff Bezos became Swole Bezos. He began a rigorous fitness regime, changed his style, and started appearing at high-profile events looking more like a Hollywood action star than a tech nerd. This wasn't just about vanity, it was a physical manifestation of his day one foot philosophy. He believed that to stay competitive, you must constantly reinvent yourself. He didn't want to be a legacy CEO. He wanted to be someone who was always evolving, always learning, and always ready for the next challenge. Perhaps the most mysterious project Jeff Bezos has ever funded is the 10,000-year clock. Deep inside a mountain in West Texas, Jeff is building a massive mechanical clock designed to tick for 10 millennia. Why spend $42 million on a clock? Because Bezos believes that modern society suffers from short-termism. We think in days, weeks, and quarters. The clock is a symbol of long-term thinking. It is meant to remind humanity that if we want to survive as a species, we have to think about the impact of our actions thousands of years from now. This is the same logic he used to build Amazon. He was willing to be misunderstood for decades because he knew his vision was correct for the long haul. In 2021, Jeff Bezos did something that shocked the business world. He stepped down as the CEO of Amazon. He handed the keys to Andy Jassy and became the executive chair. But he wasn't retiring to a beach. He stated that he needed more time to focus on Blue Origin, the Bezos Earth Fund, and the Washington Post. Shortly after stepping down, he fulfilled his lifelong dream. He climbed into the New Shepard rocket named after Alan Shepard and blasted past the Kármán line into space. For 10 minutes, the boy from the Texas ranch who fixed tractors was floating in zero gravity, looking down at the planet he had changed forever. When he landed, he didn't talk about money. He talked about how fragile the Earth looked from above. If you visit the Amazon headquarters in Seattle today, the main building is named Day 1. This is the core of the Bezos philosophy. He believes that Day 2 feet is stasis, followed by irrelevance, followed by a long, painful decline, followed by death. To Jeff Bezos, it must always be Day 1. It means staying curious, staying hungry, and being obsessed with the customer rather than the competitor. He started with a screwdriver and a crib. He moved to a garage and a wooden door, and he ended up at the edge of the atmosphere. The story of Jeff Bezos isn't a story of luck. It is a story of a man who decided that he would rather fail at a giant dream than succeed at a small one. He proved that with enough resourcefulness, a long-term view, and a day one foot mentality, one person truly can build the everything store and reach for the stars. Jeff Bezos often says that when you are 80 years old and looking back on your life, the only things that will matter are the choices you made. Not the money you earned, not the titles you held, but the moments you decided to be brave. He chose to leave $1 million career for a garage. He chose to be misunderstood for decades while he built a future only he could see. He chose to believe that it is always day one. And if you want to master the mindsets of the world's most successful people, hit subscribe and turn on that notification bell. We're building a library of greatness here, and we'd love for you to be part of the journey.